I think we've gone through what we're going to be talking about. In the presentation, give you a few minutes to talk about the competition, what's happening in the marketplace. A little bit on that subject. Talk a little bit about the actual equipment, which we've got two examples here today. Talk about what's happening at the door. So what's being said, what are the questions, what things should our consumers be thinking about. Talk a bit about our ad campaign that we have in the market, and then just a bit about the business, and then again getting on to questions. Reality of the water heater business, up until 2008, a very quiet, some would characterize as a sleepy business. If you think about yourselves, the water tank is not something you give a lot of thought to. It sits in the basement. As long as when you turn on the shower or turn on the tap, you get hot water, typically you're not thinking much about it. It's working, it's functioning. If you have an issue with it, you'd pick up the phone and call Direct Energy or whomever your supplier was, you'd get it repaired, and life would be good. In 2008, we saw a number of competitors enter the market. We have some people who believe this is a good business, which we know it is, and they've chosen to come into the market and begin selling competitive offers. What we've also seen as a result of that, however, is a fair bit of confusion, and that's why we're really here to talk about what's happening. There's a lot of information out there, and many customers will call us after they've spoken to a competitor, and they're confused. They're not getting all of the information, or in some cases getting pertinent information or the right information for them. So really that's why we wanted to get with you folks to share some of that information, because we know it'll get out to the broader communities. And that's getting into 2009. What we're really focused on is that education. We understand competition will be there. No concern about competition. In fact, Direct Energy is out advocating for competitive markets in the energy realm. So it's not a matter of having competition. It's really a matter of having the right information shared with consumers so they can make an intelligent choice. And understanding what their options are is important to us. So we've been doing some things, including this event and others, to get to media outlets, because a lot of the folks in the media have been coming and asking questions about this, because they are hearing from their readers, from their viewers, from their listeners, and want to get the real information or the facts around the issue. We're also doing some advertising, so we have radio and print advertising that's in the market across the greater Toronto area, including as far west as Niagara, to, again, inform customers, talk to them about what questions they should ask, and give them some options if they have a question or concern, who to call, and how to get information. A bit about water tanks. The water tank, these are two examples of what we call conventional tanks. The appliance has been around for a long, long time. It hasn't changed dramatically over the years. Essentially, it is a storage tank that heats up water. So when you have hot water needs, it draws from that tank and provides the hot water you need in your home. Very, very simple. There are a couple of varieties. One here you see on the left is what we call a conventionally vented tank. So typically the exhaust gases would go up the flue, typically up the chimney, and out the house. Whereas the one there, we have a power vented tank where there's actually a small DC motor on top that would vent the gases typically out the side of the home. So two different varieties, but function very, very similarly with the exception of how they vent the exhaust gases. We also have tankless water heaters, which have become more popular, still a very small part of the market. There are, probably we would guess somewhere around 5% of the market overall today. And a tankless water heater, to put it very simply, is a much smaller footprint. It typically hangs on the wall in the basement, and it only operates when hot water is demanded. So typically when you turn your tap on for hot water, it would take a few minutes for that to pull some water in, heat it up, and supply it to wherever you're using it. So there are pros and cons to tankless. One of the pros is it is more efficient. Typically what we advise customers is with a tankless water heater you could save somewhere between $80 to $100 a year in your gas bill. So it is more efficient, but not dramatically more efficient than the storage tanks. What we find more often though is customers choose tankless for lifestyle reasons. One lifestyle reason is it's a very small footprint. So if you're looking to get as much available square feet in your basement for living purposes, then the water heater takes up a smaller amount of space. It's more compact. Another reason is if a customer has a large jacuzzi tub or something else that they're looking to fill up with hot water. With a tankless system, you never run out. It continues to supply hot water as long as you need it. So a couple of differences and a couple of things to think about when you're considering different types of hot water appliances. Last point I'll make is around maintenance. In our experience, storage tanks such as these would typically last somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 years. And depending on water condition, so if you have hard water versus softer water, how often how much hot water you consume or use, the temperature in which you like your hot water. So there's some different variables, but typically, in our experience, a tank will last about 16 years and really requires very little maintenance. They're very simple appliances. They typically work. And one of the advantages, which we'll talk about, of renting with us, if there is an issue with the tank, you simply pick up the phone, or even a concern, you pick up the phone, call us, and we would come out and service it at no cost. Some of the things that customers have asking about. So we get a fair number of questions from customers based on what they're hearing from the competition out in the market, what they're seeing in media outlets, etc. Some of the things that they ask us about, or they're confused by, is their tank safe? And the reality is the hot water tanks that are out there are safe. What you'll have some competitors talking about really comes back to venting. So in the power vented tank, there was a change that happened several years ago with the specifications for the piping that's used to vent. Historically, the hot water gases, or the gases that were coming out of the hot water heater, were generally fairly low temperature. So the ABS that was used in the venting was perfectly fine to support that hot water tank. When the tank is replaced over the past several years, it's required that with the new units, because the new hot water heaters their exhaust gases are at a higher temperature, there's a different spec for that piping, which we would put in when a tank is replaced. However, the reality is existing tanks that are there, where they had not been replaced, the venting that's in there is perfectly safe. There is no issue around safety whatsoever. And if a customer, again, has a concern, we would typically go out, check to make sure that it's operating safely, and confirm that for the customer, which we do quite often. Another myth that we've seen in the marketplace, the competition are suggesting we have high rental rates. The reality is we very regularly review our rental rates versus the competition, and we look at how we match up. And quite honestly, for the most part, we are below our competition, but remain very, very competitive. So the simple fact is we are not high in the market. And facts, in this case, prevail, and we've been offering that to our customers as well to show them that. Another one you'll hear is you need to replace your tank because you're putting dirty water, you're bathing your children in filthy water, is another one we'll see in the marketplace. The reality is that is not the case. Water is drawn from the top of the tank. The water heaters, even if you accumulate some sediment, there are places in the province where you will have some sediment in the water that settles at the bottom of the tank.